Hey, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also, be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo, grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. Today I'm very excited to welcome back to the Italian Radio Hour Katie Parla. Her passport might say born in the USA, but her soul belongs to Rome. No one knows Rome better inside and out. As a food writer, culinary guide, and best-selling author, Katie has spent the last 20 years eating, researching, and let's be honest, obsessing over Rome's food culture. Her brand new book, Rome, An Ode to Rome's Food and Culture, is already available for pre-order and it's packed with 2 decades of delicious discoveries. So since I'm also from Rome, towards the end of the episode, we're going to play a little game, Who Knows Rome Better? So don't go anywhere, ma prima pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring in person or online to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at istitutomondoitaliano.org. Katie, it's always a pleasure. I think you are like the guest that we have interviewed the most and regularly because I always know that there's something brewing on your end. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm happy to be speaking with you, and thanks for that generous intro.
I'm sure our our audience will be salivating by the end of this conversation because you are just putting the final touches. The book is now ready for pre-order. And without any further ado, I really want to focus all this conversation, our little game about Rome, but also for those that might hear you for the first time, I doubt, but let's go back one step. Let's just kind of sum up your journey from New Jersey to Rome, where you've been residing for a couple of decades now.
So I grew up in the 21st, honorary 21st Italian region, New Jersey. And I grew up in an Italian American family, but was use the correct word, obsessed with Rome from a pretty young age. When I was 16, I visited Italy for the first time. We did like a bus tour. My Latin class that I was traveling with had matching backpacks. We were the perfect targets for pickpockets. I was intrigued. I went home, started studying Italian at the local community college, and devoted all my jobs. I like had 2 jobs in high school, 3 in college, just to put money away so I could move to Rome when I grew up, whatever that meant. Didn't know, had to figure it out. So after graduating from college with an art history degree, I moved to Rome and then shifted gears from the history of art to the history of food and wine.
So you obviously just mentioned that you were born in an Italian-American household, and I was just wondering, when you look at Roman food traditions, you have now this outsider initially, now very insider perspective. What were some of the things that you were exposed to that you didn't find, or other things that you grew up with? It's like, okay, yes, that's a tradition that we kept in the US as well.
I mean, I think probably the only food that was replicated in New Jersey that I found similar analogs in Italy are South Italy's bracciole. So we would call them involtini in Rome, although the fillings are different in Rome. But meatballs also, but like not in the same context. The way that meals were structured, the amount of time my family simmered tomato sauce, like is quadruple the amount of time that I do when I'm making pasta al pomodoro or even trippa alla romana. So the cooking techniques and recipes and generally the whole food culture is different. But remember, when my family migrated to the United States, they were part of a wave of people that didn't speak the same language as their neighbors. I mean, Italians were coming from all over the peninsula and the islands, but from different cultures, different linguistic traditions, different culinary traditions, and they were people from rural poverty who didn't eat sitting down at restaurants. They ate communally, often very vegetal-driven dishes, which haven't really been fully translated in the Italian American custom at all.
Mhm. So you touch actually upon 2 points that might be sometimes be overlooked, underlooked. One, the fact that again, Italy, as the republic we're familiar with, is fairly young. So maybe the 1% spoke the official language, and then you had these dialects and different culture and so forth. And maybe even the identity of being Italian, all these different enclaves that migrated to the US and then kind of came together because they did have something in common. Even though the food waste or the preparation of the food was different, there was something that made them feel together. Would you almost say that the Italian culture was developed outside Italy?
I mean, to a great extent, you can see the parallel development of Italian culture in Buffalo and New Orleans and Brooklyn, which themselves became distinct Italian American enclaves. And you can find a similar thing happening in the 1950s and 60s in Australia and South America and Canada. So I think Italian identity, it's such a complex thing. I think there probably are master's degrees devoted to dissecting it. But what we can say for sure is that Italia as a concept, as a space and a geographical entity existed in antiquity. And so the idea of Italy was a thing already, even though I think everyone who was pondering it would acknowledge that the culture and language of Molise bared no resemblance to that of Friuli, not in 1861, not in 1870, not in 2025.
Wonderful. So I said that a conversation with Katie is like she's a walking encyclopedia, and that's why I enjoy so much having her as a guest because food might be the excuse, but there's so much research and history behind it, and cute, anecdotes and stories. So you have been in Rome for so long. Is there something that some things that still surprise you about the city's food culture, even after so many years?
I'm always surprised by what non-Italian food trends take off. Like we've been having a poke moment. The trends last a lot longer than they do in other cities. I'm like, poke, okay, I guess, but
Very aware.
I don't think Hawaiians would agree with its with it being poke, but if you say so, that's what all the branding says. And I think, Rome is a city that early on I understood Romans themselves posited as an ancient and authentic food culture, but early. We're talking, I got there in 2003. By 2004, I was like, oh no, actually, there's nothing about this food culture that's trapped in amber. It is constantly evolving. And
Mhm.
maybe there are certain elements that move at a glacial pace, others that are much more rapid. But food in Rome, as everywhere on the planet, is susceptible to influence and transition, especially for economic reasons. And
Mhm.
I mean, 2002, 2003, with the arrival of the euro and then the financial crisis of '08, it's only natural that there would be large paradigm shifts in the way that people consume food, ponder food, budget for food, shop for food. And we haven't even talked about the labor reforms that also introduced economic complexities that influence the food system and the way that people spend their money on food.
So you decided to come back to Rome, or not physically, but you had a previous cookbook about Roman cuisine. So let's talk about what you wanted to this new ode to Rome, which I love the title as a reflection of your journey over the years and what you wanted to share with the audience about Rome. How is the book structured? Let's talk about that first.
So, Rome, and I always have to remember the subtitle. It is a culinary history, a cookbook, and a field guide to flavors that shaped a city. I'm pretty sure that's right, but I would, it's so long. Everyone's like, that's kind of long. In any event, the book is structured in three parts. The first chunk is dedicated to Rome's history through food from the Iron Age to the present. So I touch on Rome developing its own culinary identity as one driven by shepherds in ancient times. I talk about the development of global commerce in the empire. We touch on the importance of the church to feed people and to cultivate a food system in the Middle Ages. Obviously, the popes get a shout out with their fancy banquets. The fascist period and contemporary Rome are also covered, but it's basically a crash course in Roman history with food and drink as the anchors of that journey.
And so obviously the challenge with any publication is to eventually decide which stories, people, and places to include and what you have to left out. Otherwise, it will be again a huge. So again, can you give us a little bit an idea of how you went about your inclusion process?
Yeah, I mean, well, for the recipes, it's pretty simple. I wanted to showcase what are all the classics going back to, the 20th century. Don't believe anyone who tells you that their recipe for cacio e pepe is from like 1720. That's a lie. That's made up. Or carbonara for that matter, or pizza or any of those things. A lot of what we eat in Rome today is shaped in the 1960s, the post-war era, and afterwards. And so it's classic dishes and modern classics too. So you'll find, of course, uh, fettuccine con regali di pollo, my favorite dish, fettuccine with chicken innards ragu, right alongside fried carbonara, which has become the sort of substitute for supplì at the gourmet pizza by the slice joints that populate the city. And so it's a panorama of what you would encounter if you were grazing through Rome in the various pizzerias or rosticceria, the cafeterias, street food stalls, or if you were seated at a home table or a trattoria table. And of course, you know this, there's a distinction between what people eat when they go out and what they prepare at home for themselves.
Mhm. Yes, and I have to say the mattonelle di lasagna have my eye and my mouth watering over that. And I was wondering, have you encountered and ate it and tasted outside someone's home or in one of these places, Pizza al Taglio or some other quick
Totally.
stop and go places, or was it a home prepared recipe?
So this is something that I hope people make it at home, but also like it takes so long. So, and probably if you make lasagna, you're going to eat it all. But the idea is like if you have leftovers, you can cut it into cubes and then fry it to become a mattonella, like a brick. But I just had a mattonella di lasagna at L'Alimentare in Trastevere the other day, which is a really
Yeah.
great Roman style pizza spot. Gabriele Bonci at both Pizzarium and Panificio Bonci serves them. And you find like there is this, let's call it third wave pizza movement, a pizza by the slice approach that's much more gourmet, much more ingredient driven than your average joint, where the fritti that are offered tend to go beyond the suppli classico, which you can find literally everywhere, to include pasta that's fried. And although in the Chef's Table series, Gabriele Bonci claims he invented fried pasta, Naples would like a word. So the frittatino was first, buddy.
Frittatina di spaghetti, those rare occasions where you might have some leftover pasta. That's the best thing. I still do it regularly. So, well, it's when I have been to, well, I'm from Rome, but when I come regularly, it's funny because people will ask me, my students or friends and so forth, where should I go? And I say, katieparla.com will be the best reference because, I'm a Roman again. When I go there, my brother and sister will be probably the ones on the latest who opened, who closed, and what's the novelty. So one of your recommendation, and I keep on recommending because first of all, you have a wealth of information, you update it. But I've gone, and even my siblings, there are Romans. Like, can we go back to? Bonji was one of them. It's like Katie has always talks about this Bonji guy, who is very famous, but
All right.
So I made a purpose of going there, and La Veneziana, which is this breakfast pastry thing. It was so delicate. I thought I had gone to pastry heaven. So, as I said, anything that comes out of Katie is indeed to believe. It's not one of those influencers pictures where you go and search for lavender field in Tuscany in the middle of August, where lavender
Oh
is
no,
so dry and everything. But they
none
don't
of that.
you. The picture was taken 2 years prior and some other time. So anyway, part of this, of the book, if I can wait to get my copies, the third part is kind of a field guide, right? Everything that you have discovered, eaten, and obsessed about, you like to share that, right?
Yes, and the field guide is not just where and what to eat, but also how to navigate food and beverage spaces. Like, how do you approach a wine list? What Lazio producers and grapes should you be looking for? Where do you drink craft cocktails, craft beer, and artisan wine in Rome? And who are the people who are going to be serving you and curating the thoughtful lists and menus? The food section kind of builds on what I've been doing for the past 20 years. Like, I write a lot of listicles, so many lists, but I noticed that over time, either by reader feedback, like there are places that I love, but readers are like, they're not really nice to visitors. So like those are out of there. And so the field guide is places that I super highly recommend that have remained true to their devotion to quality for sometimes the whole 2 decades that I've been there, and that visitors can feel comfortable going to, because in the end, what is the point of travel if not to connect with people in any way that we can, right? And if linguistic obstacles create a challenge, then at least you can be in a place where people, in spite of not maybe knowing English or you not knowing Italian, you can interact with them, you can support what they're doing, and they can do what they love, which is, create great dishes and serve you.
Mhm. So, as far as some underrated Roman neighborhoods, do you think that more people should know about based on your experience? And again, based on what you just shared, is there a couple of neighborhoods or places that are dear to your heart?
Yes. I mean, hiding in plain sight is the Trionfale district. It's next to the Vatican museums, but rarely do people get more than a block in before hopping on the metro. Trionfale is amazing, has the largest market in town. Bonci's there, both of his businesses. There's a fantastic wine bar and coffee kiosk called Fischio. Eroi della Pizza does amazing forno style pizza, pizza alla palla, lots of pizzette, pizza in like all the classic Roman bakery ways. And it's a residential district developed in the 1920s, like much of Rome. And another, the abbiamo l'imbarazzo della scelta. Like there's so many cool neighborhoods that are very central, but people don't even consider them because they might not have 15 TikTok trends happening at the same time. I really love Centocelle, which is in the eastern periphery. A bit
Mhm.
closer to town, Pineto has a really important Ethiopian and Eritrean community, which has been a feature of Roman dining for decades. And San Lorenzo has a really fantastic craft beer culture. It's a young student neighborhood, but some of the students have grown up and now have their own businesses. And so you have, even middle-aged people like me can be entertained without getting too worn out by all the energy. And I mean, the list goes on. Even like Esquilino, which is so central, right next to the train station. A lot of people are just trying to get the hell out of there. But they're awesome wine bars, great public spaces, wonderful places to just engage with pastry. And it's a carb positive district. There's so many pizzas and so many delicious things. I just love it.
Okay, wonderful. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. This mouth-watering conversation continues. We're back with Katie Parla discussing tourists. The first day, they're full in enthusiasm, backpacks, water bottles, and so forth. And then they end up packing all the big things within, those 3 days in the Vatican museums, in here and there. It's like,
A lot.
stop, stop.
There's a really fun feature in the book that's about like a cool place you can go with no visitors, but that the Pope hung out in and Raphael painted in. It's the Villa Farnesina. It's got frescoes covered in food.
Wow. Absolutely. There are so many different spots that people can just breathe art without, having to be in line with a ticket and so forth, and having amazing coffee stops in places that share so much art. Talking about the downtown Rome, Roman Jewish cuisine, or La Cucina del Ghetto, shows up in your work. And so, what do you find most fascinating about its influence and on what we think as Roman food?
Well,
And in the book, torta di ricotta e visciole, which is once you go there, get a stand in line, get a slice or the whole pie, or learn how to make it at home. Thanks to Kitty.
esatto, eccezionale. It's so, so, so good. So Roman Jewish cuisine is endlessly fascinating because we use a single phrase to describe it, but it's actually um, it's it's indebted to a number of Jewish communities. So in the second century BCE, Jews arrive in Rome, not a diaspora community. They just come as free people. Then they're joined by slaves after the war in the Republic and the beginning of the Empire. Then in the 1490s, Jews escaping the Iberian Peninsula land. Then shortly after, from Sicily. And now, most recently, 1967, Jews arrive from Libya. And so what we think of as Roman Jewish cuisine is actually the result of not the 1967 Jews, but the other communities I mentioned being forced to live in a walled ghetto together. Whereas before they were very separate communities, once forced into a terrible slum by the Pope, they had to band together for survival, and that meant they started exchanging recipes. And so you find, of course, the torta ricotta viscole, but an important bread, the bris bread, which is called pizza ebraica, Jewish pizza, and it's like a power bar, essentially, but it was used to celebrate a circumcision and features pine nuts, raisins, candied fruits, almonds. Like, if that list doesn't sound Sicilian to you, I don't know what does. And is proof that Roman Jewish families were interacting and cross-contaminating their own festive recipes with their neighbors. And today you can go to Boccione and have both the torta di cotta e visciole, which is a ricotta and sour cherry tart, or the pizza ebraica. And eating a full meal in the Jewish quarter is a little complicated. I think the food's usually bad. You can get by at Casalino, but if you really want to get into like Jewish Roman home cooking, there's a place near Porto Bortese called C'è Pasta e Pasta, which means there's pasta and pasta. It's amazing. And it's a little cafeteria that this woman, Miriam, opened at this point almost 20 years ago. It's kosher, of course. And they have pasta and they have fish and they have vegetables. And you have literally like a tray you pick out from the steam tables and you go eat outside. And it's a delight. It's what people are cooking at home. And without the sort of touristic contamination in the Jewish quarter, which has really brought down the overall quality level of the food in those eateries.
Even because, again, there might be a few handful of dishes that kind of appear as the things to try. But the problem is that sometimes people don't pay attention to the seasonality. So an artichoke that you're going to eat in a certain time of the year versus um, when it's off season, it might be frozen. It might be coming from somewhere else. So unfortunately, that's the wanted. It almost feels like people have to check boxes, eating that, seeing that, being
Without
that.
a doubt. I'm also guilty of this, but I've been trying and I try to suggest to my tour guests, we don't have to optimize every second because if we're checking off boxes, then we risk not having an interaction with somebody or a dish or something that could just happen spontaneously. And I get that when you go to Rome, you want to have a carciofo alla giudia, a twice fried artichoke. I understand this, and I'm quite spoiled because I get to have it for months at a time in the winter. And this is me lobbying for you to book trips to Rome in the winter when the weather's actually lovely and you can have all the delicious bitter greens and fantastic heavy dishes taste better when it's not 45 degrees Celsius. And plus, it's Roman artichoke season.
Mhm. Indeed. And you also, as you mentioned before, you're very attent also to learning more and sharing where the food is coming from, the farming, the people behind it, the markets. So tell us a little bit how you go about making those connections, because then some of them might translate into knowledge that eventually we'll get through from you through a book. A lot of it also is poured into your tours around the city to create a different experiences. So tell us a little bit how you go about it.
I mean, I'm a home cook. I am also like a super optimizer. In the same breath that I'm telling, like, you don't have to optimize everything. I'm like, no, you got to get the best mozzarella. You have to get the best pecorino romano. You have to get the best this and that. Like, so, of course, obviously, I'm a hypocrite. But I spent a lot of time traveling throughout the city to get what I think is like the finest expression of an ingredient or a dish. And so that means I live in Monteverde Vecchio, but my fruttivendolo di fiducia, I got one in Trionfale, I have another in Testaccio. My macellaio di fiducia is also in Testaccio. I've got one in my neighborhood too. And so these are my produce vendor and my butcher. I've got my fishmongers that I love, but I travel through town to go shopping rather than relying on the two public markets in my neighborhood, which aren't always selling artisanal things. In fact, often uh, can't really co-sign the quality or provenance of what's on their stands.
Even because, again, there is that whole process of relationship building, that you trust them, and they might also say, "We saved this for you," or they will let you know with something in season it's hard to find, might become available. It's a very special relationship, and going around a huge city like Rome to specifically procure this food from there, and people don't understand the value of that, how important it is. And so I don't know, maybe I take it for granted, but it's almost like the seven churches, right? It's not just going to one place and just be happy with wherever they, unless you are, in a rush, you really need to get something done. But typically, it's also the going around that enhances the
Yes,
experience, that when you're looking for that one ingredient and you find it, it just, I don't know, even that is like Christmas time.
it's amazing.
Um, so, is there still a dish or something that even after so many years you kind of stayed off from trying, but you really would like to? That is very local, might be a little obscure. If for some reason you didn't get a chance to, or not wanted maybe to.
I don't think so. I mean, I eat everything, and a lot of the places that I go to still make the offcuts that maybe are more difficult to find elsewhere. There's a place, okay, so there's a place called Al Moro. This is not a casual place. It's a fancy, overpriced restaurant where they're like kind of rude, but they do snails around San Giovanni, and no one does snails around San Giovanni. That's the 24th of June. They do the like mixed fried brains and fried artichokes in the wintertime. And so at other places that are nicer, more affordable, like Cesare del Casaletto. They still do the oxtail ragu that is like a classic that not everybody serves anymore. Payata, the intestines of milk-fed veal, of course, a classic, is I would say like pretty ubiquitous these days. You can find it in a lot of places, and so for sure there are many offcuts that are out there if you're looking for them. But yeah,
Mhm.
in terms of things that like I haven't tried or I can't find anymore, there are a lot of dishes. Like if you look at like Ada Boni's book about the Cucina Romana, which came out decades ago, like some things just aren't made anymore.
Mhm.
They've been replaced by other stuff. Like back then you couldn't find carbonara, but now you can. So It's not as though places can serve every single thing that's ever been cooked in Rome. They have to curate their menus, and as they do, certain things fall away and others enter the picture.
Yeah. Whenever you mention pagliata, it always reminds me of Alberto Sordi. And now there is a new documentary that came out, Alberto Sordi, Secret, that I hope is going to make to the United States quite soon. Are there any popular characters of Roman culture that you have accustomed to like or appreciate the Roman sense of humor or dialect?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm Romanista. There's a
Okay.
famous laziale.
Now we can publish this interview.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's a famous laziale who is epic and hilarious and a big personaggio in the cuisine of especially like post-war Rome, and that's Sorella. And
Ah,
she's in the same universe as Alberto Sordi, and she's like a very boisterous Romanaccio speaking cook
yeah.
who's now, children, grandchildren have sort of kept her place on the Tiber Island alive. Another spot that I actually like, even though like it's a little too expensive. They're not always the nicest, but I think that they've improved a lot in the past few years, and they kind of understand the gravity of carrying on the family name. It's a little bit like, Armando al Pantheon, which is the most famous trattoria in Rome. You would think like, oh, they're just going to cash in because they're near the Pantheon. No, the name Armando being on the front of that building means everything to them.
Mm.
That means Claudio and Fabrizio are working to put forward their father's legacy, and their
Mhm.
children are devoted to their grandfather's legacy. And so there's really, I think it's sometimes tempting to be skeptical of a place because it's famous, but in the case of at least Armando Ponte, like what's better? It's a classic for a reason.
Mhm. Yes, and also, the test, the food business, sometimes, well, first maybe less in Europe, but here in the US or where I'm at, you have a restaurant super popular 6 months, a year later they're out. So for someone that is there, generation after generation is actually a testament that something good that really
Oh, what's going on? Yeah.
is happening there. Okay, so are you ready for a little fun Who Knows Rome Better quiz with Katie Parla?
Hey.
So this is more for the audience because I know that Katie probably has the answer to all of them, but they will also, once you give the answer and if you want to elaborate on the answer, a couple of things she has already stole my thunder, but I still have to ask them. Ok, allora, domanda numero uno. It's a true or false. Carciofi alla Giudia, are they fried twice?
Okay, I know this is a yes or no answer. Yes, kind of, because they're poached in lower temperature oil first, and then they're fried in hotter oil to crisp them. One step cooks the heart all the way through, which takes a while. And if you did it at frying temperature, it would burn after a while. Whereas you want to just make sure it's really tender and then cool it off, fan out the leaves, and then cook it in hotter oil at frying temperature. So yeah, it's both fried twice and not fried twice.
Very technical. So, and they are so beautiful to look at and so crispy, almost like potato chips. It has that
So good.
crunch when
Do you love Italian food? Want to learn the secrets of homemade pasta, sauces, and traditional recipes, just like Nana used to make? At Mondo Italiano, our authentic Italian cooking classes bring the taste of Italy right to Pittsburgh. From fresh pasta to regional specialties, every class is a delicious journey through Italy's culinary traditions. Spots fill quickly, so reserve your seat today. Call us at 412-478-2681 or find us online. Mondo Italiano, where Italy comes alive one dish at a time.
un caffè per favore. For more than 35 years, Pittsburgh has started its mornings with La Prima Espresso. From freshly roasted beans from around the world to the perfect espresso or cappuccino, every cup is crafted with care. Stop by and enjoy the warmth of our baristas and familiar faces, or bring the taste of Italy home. Order online today at laprima.com. La Prima Espresso, Pittsburgh's coffee. Okay, so she nailed the first question. The second one might be a little tougher. So which pasta shape is traditionally used for cacio e pepe? And your options are spaghetti, tonnarelli, or bucatini.
Tonnarelli.
Yes.
Hooray!
Can you explain what tonnarelli looks like? Because people might not be familiar with this pasta shape or alternative names.
It's a long, square noodle. I think it's like 3 millimeters, I should say, by 3 millimeters.
That is major precision. Okay, next time I make them, I'll make sure to have my measuring tape. You are too much.
When I make them, I actually use a chitarra, which is, spiritually, if not literally, tonnarelli and spaghetti alla chitarra are essentially the same pasta
Same.
shape. Abruzzese people and Roman people will get furious, but if you look at the dimensions and think about if you're knife cutting tonnarelli, it's
Mhm.
very difficult to get consistency. Whereas if you're rolling a sheet of pasta over the chitarra, you get perfectly squared noodles,
Mhm.
just as though you're making um, spaghetti alla chitarra. Also, we know around, it's got to be even more than 400,000 people in Rome are from Abruzzo. Okay,
Mhm.
so obviously there's a little bit of Abruzzese influence in Roman cuisine, whether Romans will acknowledge it or not.
Yes, no, I think you kind of nailed it. I mean, spaghetti alla chitarra we say also in Puglia because of the transumanza. So whenever there was sheep, there were or animals to move around, the shepherds brought their tools, so to speak. So there is a lot of cross-pollination even in the gold traditions of Abruzzo, Puglia, and Lazio because of this moving around. So I personally agree. Okay, so 2 out of 2. Moving on to the next one. What day of the week is the most traditional day to eat gnocchi in Rome?
Giovedì, Thursday.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Do you know any fun facts around it?
Yes. Fridays in the Catholic calendar require devout people to abstain from meat. And you want to get really full on Thursday so you don't notice that there's no meat on the table the next day. So one way to do it is to pack your tummy with potato gnocchi dumplings. Um, that tends to that tends to get you through.
Okay, so now this is about places and markets, and I think maybe the first question can be kind of ubiquitous, although you have options. So where in Rome would you go and find suppli al telefono? Testaccio Market, Campo dei Fiori, or Trastevere? And nowadays everywhere, but do you have a preference or?
Yeah, I mean, there are two places in Trastevere that I go for supli, both on my food tours with my guests, as well as just because I love supli and I like to eat them all the time. So, L'Alimentare and supli are two places. One is a like the round pizza tonda style place, L'Alimentare, and
Mhm.
supli used to be called Venazio, but now they just changed the name. I think the family sold, and so they're like, let's just call the place after what we do best, and that's a
Oh,
pizza taglio.
okay. So next question is she's like 4 out of 4. Let's see if we can get you. So this one, which neighborhood is historically tied to Rome's slaughterhouses and offal dishes like trippa and coda alla vaccinara?
Pistaccio.
Pistachio, indeed. Describe us a little bit this neighborhood, and also maybe where the name, what else can we find in Pistachio that is very unique because it kind of gives us an idea of the trade from back in the day.
So Testaccio was developed as a grid-planned warehouse district in the late Republic and Empire. And it was, among other things, a destination for olive oil imported mainly from Andalusia and Tunisia. And today, even though it's a flat floodplain, I guess, geologically, when you walk through Testaccio, opposite the retired slaughterhouse is a hill of terracotta jug shards that were smashed in order to maximize their deposit volume during the Empire. And actually, regularly, Roman pottery experts from Andalusia come and study the remnants on the hill because the Romans branded their ancient jugs, and you can use epigraphy and the brands in order to determine roughly when the jug was made. And it helps us trace the rise and fall of Rome's olive oil trade during the empire. And that's right across the street, as I said, from the retired slaughterhouse, which was functioning for nearly a century, but shuttered in 1970, and now is a multi-use cultural and educational space. And it's amazing.
Yes, they have sometimes exhibits, and I think I even saw a little rink for kids. Must
Yes.
have been seasonal, or I don't know if it's permanent.
It's
Okay,
a winter skating
I
rink with ice, which like never stays frozen because it's 62 degrees in the
hot. Okay, so we are going back to food for a quirky expression. Romans often say giovedì gnocchi, as we have said before, venerdì pesce, sabato trippa. So what would it be the Sunday tradition?
pasta al forno.
Pasta al forno, wow, you
Gotta bake your pasta.
Yeah. Okay, so pasta al forno, let's translate it. What would you expect as a dish for pasta al forno?
Baked pasta, which I mean, generally it's like a lasagna situation. A lot of my friends don't cook, but their moms and grandmoms send them pasta al forno from Abruzzo on the train. And so
Mhm.
it's like a pasta, often like rigatoni in a meat sauce with chopped up hard-boiled eggs,
Mhm.
sometimes little meatballs, and then like a melting cheese on top, and they throw it in the oven after defrosting, and that's Sunday lunch.
That is delicious. That was our Sunday tradition
Oh,
as
good.
well. Okay, so this is so typically in Italy you would order un caffè, un cornetto. What is the typical breakfast pastry that Rome is famous for?
Well, maritozzi, but it didn't start as a breakfast pastry. It
Mhm.
started as a
Right?
Lenten.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, calling it a treat is a strong word because it was like a oil-based pastry with pine nuts and raisins. They're called maritozzi quaresimali, and they
Mhm.
taste and look nothing like the now pasticceria or cafe style maritozzi, which are butter based, so definitely not for Lent. Um,
Mhm.
whipped cream filled sort of brioche dough. And that has become a very, very famous trend, which maybe even just 10 years ago, it was difficult to track down a maritozzo. Now there are like maritozzari all over the place, and they do sweet and savory ones at breakfast and all day long, actually.
Yes. So let's see what else we have because I can't get you in trouble. You were
I
like,
want to be, yeah, I want to get something wrong.
okay, well, don't do it on purpose. I do have a couple of monuments questions. So the first one is about obelisks. And so how many obelisks are in Rome? And your numbers, your choices are 5, 8, or 13.
Well, there are 13 obelisks, but only 8 are authentic and Egyptian because there was a trend starting in the first century BCE after Octavian, who ultimately became Augustus the first emperor, used obelisks pillaged from Egypt and scattered them all over town, including the Circus Maximus, to represent his dominance over Cleopatra, Mark Antony in the East. So that started a trend. And famously, Sallust, a rich Roman dude from that era, had a knockoff made that was the one he saw in the Circus Maximus. You can see the one in the Circus Maximus in Piazza del Popolo, and the knockoff is at the top of the Spanish Steps. So as you're Rome, be suspicious. Not all the obelisks are really Egyptian. Some even have fake hieroglyphics. Gibberish.
Yes. And again, to the Testament, I wanted to reinstate their power and use some of the symbols that already exude power. Okay, this is going to be my last one, okay? And so there is a fountain in Rome shaped like a boat. What is its name and where is it located?
It's called the Barcaccia, the poor boat, unfortunate boat. And it's in front of the Spanish Steps, Piazza di Spagna.
Okay. Can we add a bonus question? Maybe who was designed by?
I forget Bernini's dad's name, but Bernini's father. John Lorenzo Bernini's father.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Piero, something like that.
Pietro, sì, Pietro e Gian Lorenzo Bernini. Wow. So, and what did I want to say? Yes, I think there was a flood in Rome, and a kind of a little boat was end up there. So the fountain represents indeed that flood and the fact that the boat was found there. So the next one and the very last one is not a question as far as a trivia question because, cum laude. But obviously after being 20 years in Rome, I'm sure you have picked up some of our colorful Roman sayings. So I was wondering if you have a favorite Roman expression or phrase that really captures the spirit of the city, maybe one that you find yourself using in your daily life.
Yeah, this is not directed at you, Viviana, but my favorite, and I use it a lot. I think anyone who drives in Rome, which is everybody, can embrace the phrase "Mali mortacci tua," which is I like curse your favorite dead relatives type of vibe. It's pretty cool, and you can find it used in other parts of Italy in different dialects. But I ride a bicycle in Rome, so I'm like it's always on the tip of my tongue because someone's always trying to like knock me off my bike or cut me off or like putting on their left signal but turning right, and so it's my fave. I'm into it.
It's okay. So, Katie, this has been such a delightful conversation. Is there anything else? Oh, I want to mention, going back to the book, which you will tell us all about how to pre-order. But this is very important because this is 100% not only made in Italy, but also this is it's independently published because you got into the publishing business having learned lessons learned from. So I just re-emphasize how important this point is.
So, Rome is my 10th or 11th cookbook, my 4th solo title. And after making many, many, many bad deals and not making any money writing cookbooks, I was like, hey, maybe I can do this myself. I built a spreadsheet, crunched some numbers, and realized, you know what? I can probably pay for a book by running pre-orders and then doing events. And in fact, this has been a very positive thing for my financial situation. So, in the sort of like, writers are like famously impoverished. But now I can actually make a living doing my writing work, whereas before I was subsidizing my writing with my tour business. And you can find this 100% made in Italy book on my website, which is katieparla.com. If you just want to go right to the store, shop.katieparla.com. And while you're on the site, check out the city guides, which you don't have to buy them. That's free. Free 99.
It's free.
Whereas the cookbook comes in two editions. The one that is pictured on the screen is the standard edition. It's $45 and it's signed. I signed 3,000 sheets in Milan at the printer, and they have been bound into the book. And then there's also the special edition, which has a debossed slipcase and a unique cover. And because I'm I'm experienced, but not like an expert in publishing. The printer's like, you can't deboss a slipcase. And I was like, are you sure? And they're like, okay, fine, we'll figure it out. And I just got the video today. They had to build like a wooden block, and some dude in Milan is hand inserting the block into the slipcase, and the debossing thing is doing the thing. And it's crazy what you can do if you just like pay an extra dollar per per slipcase.
It is indeed a volume that you want to add to your collection. Great. The holidays are also approaching, so order them now, get a signed copy. It will be very special. So, unfortunately, our time together is up. Il Big Bang ha detto stop, and it's time for us to say arrivederci alla prossima. And we want to thank you for tuning in into the program. And if you have any questions or comments, or if you have any topics you would like us to address, please contact us at italianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, subscribe to the Italian Radio Hour on YouTube or where you catch your favorite podcasts. And also, don't forget to share this podcast because sharing is caring. So I would like to thank again my very special guest, Katie Parla. Our sponsor is Istituto Mondo Italiano e La Prima Espresso. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao ciao. And for you, Katie, se beccamo.
Se beccamo a Roma. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.